Spectre marks the next chapter in the hallowed story of Rolls-Royce as the company moves towards fully electric mobility by 2030. And the reason why the Goodwood House of Luxury has resisted up until this point to make an electric vehicle is because it wasn't until right here, right now, that it was truly ready to make a Rolls-Royce electric. Gone is the 6.75 litre V12 that usually lives up front, which continues to serve in Phantom, Ghost and Cullinan, the penultimate expression of chaos harnessed. Instead, we find a swathe of aluminium which still proudly bears the Rolls-Royce insignia because, as the company insists, nothing has been taken away with the retirement of that engine. Instead, this is the move forward for the House of Rolls-Royce. This carefully considered move towards the future requires a delicate balancing act that I think Rolls-Royce has managed to do just perfectly. Things like this split headlight design, for example, and the illuminated grille, while it may come across as gaudy on a BMW, here they are so tastefully integrated into the design as if Rolls-Royces were always meant to look this way. Even the dramatic profile of Spectre is something that I would have only have expected to see from Goodwood, pairing that dramatic fastback profile with the beautiful proportions that only a Rolls-Royce can manage. Even the taillights, which sit clear for the very first time in a Rolls-Royce as to never combat the chosen specifications of their clientele, look like tastefully made art pieces rather than regulatory requirements. It is extraordinary how timeless Spectre looks, even though this is very much a product of the here and now. Even on the inside, it's a delicate balance of old and new. The doors, for example, are rear hinge, as they have been traditionally on Rolls-Royces for many years. And the wings still hide a pair of perfectly specification-matched umbrellas, as you'd expect from a modern Rolls-Royce. The HVAC controls here are so satisfyingly analog, and even these vents are still made out of a heavy metal with these organ stop controls still so satisfyingly heavy. Everything in here feels so solid and considered, like they're hewn from granite and then wrapped in beautiful bullhide leather. But then, of course, comes the new. This infotainment, for example, clearly has Bavarian origins, but it is tailored in such a way that it displays itself in a manner that you will only be able to find in a Rolls-Royce. Up ahead of me, for example, sits a digital instrument cluster, the first ever for a Rolls-Royce, which comes with the most minimalist display I've ever seen on a modern car. What's also worth noting is that the color of the dials themselves, which in this car is a beautiful azure blue, is selected at point of specification and cannot be customized following that. This is a digital instrumentation, but it's very analog in its presentation. Such is that beautiful, delicate balance. Ahead of the front passenger lies a panel where you see the Spectre badging within a galaxy of stars. That is illuminated via hundreds of thousands of fiber optics, the very same technology that you will find powering the Starlight headliner in this car, again to present itself in a way that is mystifying and incredibly enchanting. All of this marriage of old and new is what differentiates Rolls-Royce as a true ultra-luxury brand, not like your Mercedes. It's a good thing then that the Spectre can do about 520 kilometers on a single charge, because if you keep mashing the pedal, you're not really going to realize that range. Not that you would need to stop for very long should you need to, because this car can accept a charge fast enough to get it from 10 to 80% in about half an hour, or via a 22 kilowatt charger, it should take about 5.5. But when you're moving, it's really quite hard to get a sensation of speed because, like many other Rolls-Royces before it in Spectre, everything outside just appears to be theatre. It's as if the world is moving past you while you remain stationary. The planar suspension in this car has actually been reworked from its original interpretation in Ghost, now to improve a degree of dynamics and to better work with the way the weight is distributed in Spectre. With its cooperation with the flag bearer system, which is a set of cameras that read the road ahead and prepare the suspension in this car for whatever it is that might lay ahead, it means that life in here is just as serene as you'd expect from something bearing the spirit of ecstasy. However, Rolls-Royce is keen to point out that the level of silence and serenity in this car was contributed to actively via the battery system. Of an unspecified size, although we can guesstimate at a little bit over 110 kilowatts, it actually acts as 700 kilograms of sound dampening, allowing for whatever noises that are kicked up via the tires to be suppressed before entering the cabin. Such is the attention to detail into the silence and serenity of this cabin that even the spirit of ecstasy has been reworked, demanding some 830 hours in a wind tunnel and working with engineers to reduce the coefficient of drag. She now sits further ahead in her perch, leaning into the wind, and her robes have been reprofiled to reduce drag. As a result, there is no road noise, there is no wind noise. It is ultimate serenity, as you'd expect in something from Rolls-Royce. But some may ask that without the V12 powering it, whether or not the Spectre still feels like a Rolls-Royce. The 6.75 litre engine has been such an intrinsic part of the Rolls-Royce history book that without it, it can be considered as a loss somewhat. But it is worth remembering that electric mobility has existed for quite some time now, and Rolls-Royce has resisted moving towards electric mobility until it felt confident that it could translate the Rolls-Royce driving experience into the electric future as confidently as it has for the last 100 years. Although electric mobility has served as something of an equalizer within the segment, allowing both nascent brands and traditional ones to fight on the same playing field, Rolls-Royce insists that this movement towards electric mobility has taken nothing away from this experience. If anything, this serves as an enhancement to bring this car closer towards their intended ideal of true serene driving with no noise, no vibrations, only peerless movement. While electric plays a very big part of the Spectre experience, ultimately it still feels like a Rolls-Royce. It is as much about the individual parts of a Rolls-Royce as the sum of it all working together, again, to provide that peerless, seamless, effortless driving experience. So to that end, the retirement of the 6.75 litre doesn't take away from that experience. Instead, it opens up a new era for Rolls-Royce to move confidently towards electric mobility in a way that its customers understand and appreciate. The experience in this car can only be described as uniquely Rolls-Royce. The power in Spectre is smooth and the torque is delivered very gently, like a build-up of ferocity rather than the neck-snapping response that you get out of something like a Porsche Taycan. And it's only once you're on the move do you realize just how light all the controls are, the way they have always been in Rolls-Royces, allowing you to move and maneuver this over 5 meter long, 3-ton machine with a sort of effortless grace that a car like this really shouldn't have. But to talk about practicality in a car like this would be a disservice to all the effort that has been put into this driving experience. To call this car effortless would be an understatement. It is truly peerless in its refinement and the execution of luxury with a discerning focus on absolute discretion has an understated feel to it, something that we've come to expect of Rolls-Royces, a brand that has built its entire reputation on being able to service the ultra-wealthy in a manner that only they know how. And so, while I could talk about things like cup holders and wireless charging and the size of the door bins, that's not really the consideration for this car. The bigger question has always been whether or not Rolls-Royce will be able to move confidently into electric mobility once the time comes. And with its commitment towards going fully electrified by 2030, at least we can say that with Spectre, they seem to be doing it just right. This tasteful luxury is something that errs on the side of restraint. It never screams, it never shouts, it merely executes what it needs to do with effortless ease. If a Maybach is something like a French Revolution, This feels more Edwardian in the way it's executed. It's restrained, it's considered, and more importantly, more than anything else, it is effortlessly tasteful. If you're still watching and this part of the video, we'd like to thank you so much for your support and thank you for 20,000 subscribers. We wouldn't be here without you and without your support, and it is truly the reason we get up in the morning every day. Thank you so much for watching. We'll catch you in the next one. Take care, stay safe, and maybe not this time.